Hello, good morning everybody. Welcome once again to the first session for the EMI conference in Santiago. Before we start, I would like to thank you for coming. I'm very happy to see you again, and I'm very happy to see new people in the EMI conference and new people. I like to see new people, young new people, because this is a good news for the IME's conference and for the IME Association, because I think it's very important young people know the association and enjoy the association and research in our association. We have, yesterday, the president of IME and the president of the Council for Galician Country said that we have an ambitious program this year. You can see in your carpet. And for us, this year, it hasn't been easy because we received very interesting papers, and it was difficult to organize everything, very, very difficult. For us, it's a pleasure to organize this conference because this celebration here, it is that a lot of people know our institution and the name of IME, it's known here too. I would like to start. I would like to explain some things about the people who are with me. We have 5 papers. One of these paper for the paper from Laura Oso and Raquel Martinez Bujan. She doesn't arrive, and then we start without her. In the first place, we have the conference of Maria González and the paper of Maria González and Vicente Peña. In the second will be Laura, but it's not arrived. And the third, Sara Ingrosso from Munich, the University of Munich. In the fourth, Rebecca Mesarik for Zagreb, for Croatia. And in the end, Sarah Josephine Horn from the Danish Immigration Museum from Denmark. All of the papers speak about the new global immigrations that you see in the program. And we order in this session because for us it's interesting, because all papers speaks about the new young people immigration. And in this case, we have the examples of Galician people go to Germany, is the case to Maria, and the other cases that we have, the cases of Italian newcomers to Germany, in the case of Sarah, and finally the Croatian community in Germany too. Then Germany is the country that received all people, all young new people. And the other cases is the Romanian people in Denmark. Then, well, we start with Maria. Is your time? 50 minutes.
Thank you. Oh, okay, this presentation is titled New Migrations from Galicia to Germany, Educational Profiles and Social Networks. In recent years of the new millennium, the media have spread several reports on the current migration of Spanish youth. Among them, and to cite only a few examples with illustrative purposes, we find the following headlines. You can see in the PowerPoint, for example, Galician scientists concerned about the brain drain because of the recession, or qualified Spanish immigration increase in Germany, or a total of 36,511 Spaniards emigrate to Germany in 2013, according to the Federal Bureau of Statistics. Other examples are Iciar Boyain portrays the disappointment and nostalgia of Spanish immigrants, or the loss of 25% of young people aggravates the economic impact of aging in Galicia. There are more and more examples that you can see here. For example, millennial generation, 80% of young people believe they will have to emigrate to work, or more than 30,000 people emigrated to other countries or communities in 2014. This media landscape reflects to some extent the social concern about the phenomenon of emigration and has led to a debate about the quantification of the number of emigrants living in Spain. In fact, there is no source that can identify relatively accurately the exact number of people who have left. And that is why the research presented herein is more of a descriptive and qualitative analysis of a sample of emigrants from Galicia to Germany and their academic profiles, rather than a study with ambitions of completeness and representativeness surrounding the current Galician emigration in Germany. This communication is the result of the research conducted in the year 2014, titled Approaching the Migration Process of Galician Youth in Germany at Present, Educational Profile, Employment and Expectations, mentored and guided by Professor Vicente Peña Saavedra of the University of Santiago de Compostela. Why we decide to do this research? The main reasons have been personal, social and scientific. First, since childhood, we have here different histories referring to Germany that a person of our family who immigrated in the 60s to a town near Frankfurt always told us. Following this flow of memories, our being able to visit Germany and see if what is known as the economic locomotive of Europe was really the same country that was set in our imagination. Secondly, emigration is a systemic phenomenon that is a substantial part of the history of Galicia. In this regard, some publications of outstanding importance on the study of emigration must be cited, such as those made by José Manuel Beiras Torrado, Structure and Problems of the Galician Population, the work of Professor Julio Hernández Borge, Galician Emigration to Europe from 1961 to 1975, the publications of Professor Vicente Peña Saavedra, such Galicia America, Historical Relations and Future Challenges, the work of Antonio Iras Roel, and the work of Carlos Isirey Paredes and the Professor Ramón Villares Paz. Thirdly, at present, the research that is being done on emigration from within the field of education is still scarce, and we consider it necessary to document and visualize more and deeply what is happening with this phenomenon from a pedagogical perspective. We believe that it's essential to examine it from its educational aspect, since there are several implications involved in this domain. Our research program was expressed in these terms: have the most qualified and best trained young people from Galicia been emigrating in recent years? In relation thereto, the general objective, and you can see in the PowerPoint, is analyze the current emigration of Galician youth to Germany while trying to focus mainly on their educational profile and type of employment done in the host country, in order to verify if the phenomenon of brain drain, which the media talks much about, corresponds or not to the reality of those who have left. In addition to this general objective, we made 3 specific objectives. They are the following: identify and get to know the educational profile, academic studies and training of Galician immigrant youth in Germany in recent years. The second objective was establish close contact with the object immigrant study group to collect information on their self-perception about feelings, emotions and opinions. And the third objective was inquire into the main expectations and social relationships of the group of young immigrants from Galicia to Germany today. The population under study was intentionally selected given they have the following characteristics: young Galicians born in Galicia, ages between 18 and 41 years old, emigrated since 2007, and the country of destination was Germany. The initial size of population were 77 people, and after a review, this number was reduced to 69. Of this group, a total of 34 people were eventually involved. And how we did contact with this population? The main tools used to contact to Galician immigrants were the use of internet, and more specifically, the social network Facebook. In this network, we create our own profile and carry out the research. Then we search for different groups that live in Germany, such as Gallegos in Baviera, Gallegos in Heidelberg, or Gallegos in Hamburgo. About the methodology, we use a mixed method, both quantitative and qualitative. The first allows us to have closer and more detailed contact with the population studied, and the second provides for the numerical treatment of much of the data collected directly from our informants. The main tools that we used were a questionnaire, an interview, and our own observation. The final questionnaire was integrated by 69 questions and divided in 4 thematic blocks: personal data, educational profile, employment, and self-perception, social relationships, and expectations. In the case of the interviews, we established 6 thematic blocks, vertebrate around the content of the questionnaire, and we carried this via Skype. In the end, we managed to interview 9 people, 6 women and 3 men. And now the main results. In relation to the educational profile, these results show that this is a youth group which is led by, with the same percentage, 23.5%, those who attend higher education, master level or equivalent, or those with a 3-year degree. In Spanish is a diplomatura. Secondly, by those who complete a 5-year degree, in Spanish is a licenciatura, and finally, by those who complete a degree. A total of 28 people had university degrees. 3 had courses vocational training, higher or intermediate level, 1 had a degree in secondary education, and 1 had a degree in artistic education. Overall, in terms of specialization, highlighted was the engineering and architecture area with 9 people who have studies related to the same, and the area of health science with 7 people who have studied that. In addition to study universities, vocational training, higher or intermediate level, referred to in the study were graphic arts, image and sound, hotel and tourism, and health. Other studies that they informed us were arts education and, more specific, music and visual arts and design. The level of training received in Spain was weighted by the majority as high, followed by the assessment of average, and for a 3% as low. Some languages that they knew before departure to Germany and in which they did have an official certification were English, French, and Portuguese. The main results about self-perception. To get to know their particular and personal views as immigrants, we asked them different questions. You can see on the PowerPoint. For example, how did you feel once you arrived in Germany? Or did you feel welcome? Some answers we got were, at first I feel pretty bad because it was a new town, I did not anyone. Or I was lucky at work and German people I met were very kind to me and gave me a nice welcome. Or other people say, yes, I did not feel welcomed either by the Germans or the German bureaucracy. Other question was, how do you think Galician youth immigrants are perceived by the German society? And they say that they have the perception that we immigrate there to steal their jobs, or that we came here demanding a lot, waiting to make a lot, and that we do not make much effort. Another example is the question, currently, would you define yourself as a Galician immigrant, as a foreign worker, as just one more German? And they say that they are immigrants. The first response is that they are immigrants, and in the second place is worker. Some people propose their own self-identification as world citizen or expatriate. The main results about relationships and social networks. The emigrate group to Germany participates in different activities and celebrations in the area where they live and keep in touch with the Spanish people more than in German people. There are more in contact with Spanish people that came from Galicia, Andalusia, or Catalonia. The main means of maintaining communication and relationship between the immigration population is internet and the social networks. And a very important factor is that they create a close Facebook group to keep in touch with people of the same origin where they live. And other media that they use are mobile phones and email. And I have only 5 minutes, so I try to summarize. The main results about expectations are referred to the return to their country of origin. The main question that we did was, do you plan to return to your country? The answer that we obtained is that they confirm that they want to return. However, they have many doubts about this return, and the previous expectations that we can see here are related with work upgrading, economic upgrading, and extending studies. Some examples of the answers were, I wanted to find a job, or when I was told I was hired, I thought I couldn't be true. And the main conclusions to finish are that the educational profile of the Galician collective emigrated to Germany is correlated with people that have a high level of education. And they told us that it's necessary to carry out some changes in the education system and in the students' training. And in reference to self-perception, they identify themselves as immigrants, and they are now in positive integration in Germany. They have many doubts about the return. They don't know when they can return to Galicia, but they hope the choice of immigration as an escape from the current situation never happens again, and that coming generations don't need to emigrate as they have had to do. And that is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria, for your presentation. Now, Sara Ingrosso.
Okay, so good morning and thank you. In today's presentation, I will first give an overview of contemporary migration forms from Italy to Germany, and then I will provide some results about their identity perceptions. First of all, some data. Nowadays live almost 600,000 Italian people, and they represent the third largest community after the Turks and the Polish. And in recent times, their presence has increased. For example, just from 2014 and 2015, their presence has increased by almost 22,000 people. To the case study Munich, the city I analyzed, these are data about Italian population from 2001 to 2015. And also in this case, this was a huge increase in recent times. Nowadays live almost 28,000 Italian people in the city of Munich. And from 2014 and 2015, their presence has increased by over 1,000 people. And in the last 5 years, so from 2010 and 2015, their presence has increased by over 6,000 people. If it's possible to describe current migration forms, it is possible to say that they are mainly due from the other side as a consequence of internalization processes inside the European Union, and from the other side as a consequence of the recent economic crisis in Southern Europe. To the first point, there has been an increasing internationalization of the labor markets, a rise of opportunity inside the European Union, various educational, institutional, and economic centers, and also because of the fact that there is no visa required to travel there, and it also represents an accretion point of people who want to just have a new experience beyond their national borders. On the other side, there are lacks of guarantees and job perspective, especially among young people, and because of this, they decide to emigrate. In recent times, a new fashionable word, if it's possible to define it like this, has been defined, so the word expat. And according to this definition, it is possible to say that expat are a subgroup of immigrants who generally have a high level of education, are a high professional status, and are often in a certain place for a limited time. And Italian newcomers in Munich are employed in different professional contexts. For example, in the financial environment, in the cultural environment, but also as engineers, as academics, gastronomy workers, and as students. And the Italian population living in the city of Munich is composed by traditional immigration, so from migrant workers, the so-called Gastarbeiter. Of course, they are not workers anymore, they are all pensioners, but they arrived here as migrant workers, and their offspring, who have both a low and a high education level. And on the other side, there are newcomers who are, as I just explained before, included in various professional contexts. So it is not a plain and closed group, and is it therefore very difficult to talk about a community? So the first question is it a community? Is it possible to talk a community at all? Because they just, in some cases, they just have a nationality in common. As provided here in example 1, I will directly read the translation in English language. I dissociate myself from them. It is not true that we can be friends just because we live in the same situation, talking about migration. And I dissociate myself from many Italians here because we have different lifestyle. And I will now move to the description of my project. Research questions are: in which way is the individual identity attitudes of Italian newcomers towards the target society perceived? To what extent does this identity attitude influence the perceived inclusion into the German societies? Goals are the investigation of cultural identity perception of individual belonging to a group which is very difficult to categorize. And on the other side, the analysis of language and identity attitudes in this new migration context. I work with semi-structures interviewed both in German and in Italian language. All contexts have been transcribed and analyzed through a critical discourse analysis. And my test persons were 21 Italian citizens between 21 and 46 who migrated to Germany between 1999 and 2013. And I chose one of 2 sample persons for each professional context. But before moving to the description of my first results, I would first like to give a conceptual explanation of the word identity. And according to new postmodern theories, plurality can be defined as a key term of postmodern area to define identity. And therefore, I would define identity according to this definition, according to the definition of Buchholz and all, define it as a social positioning of self and other, where identity does not emerge at a single analytic level, but it operates at multiple levels simultaneously. And because of these theories, I couldn't resist mentioning Kuip's model. And according to this model, there are at the first level meta-identity with dominant identity parts, feelings, and central biographical narratives. And then at the second level, identity parts, for example, who am I at work, who am I with my family, and so on. And the third level, experience and self-thematization. And now I will provide some results. It is at first possible to say that there is an awareness of the target group toward a process of transformation. From the one side, cultural tradition can be identified with the country of origin, and on the other side, professional lives can be identified with the country of destination. As provided here in example number 2, I am rather German, but my habits are Italian. But my approach toward my professional life is German. And it is also possible to say that multiple identity perceptions are ranging from local to global attitudes. As described in example number 3 and number 4, I would say I am European, but I am Sicilian. So something local and something global. Therefore, I am a Sicilian in Europe. Or, on the other hand, I am an Italian, so something local in the world, global. On the other hand, it was demonstrated that phenomena of isolation and cultural detachment are present, both from the country of origin, as provided here in example number 5. I felt like a stranger in Italy, and towards the country of destination. Now I feel here like a stranger. And it is possible to say that cultural detachment phenomena can also be defined through language. As provided in example number 6, you can understand what people say have become part of those people. And using this pronoun, those, it's provided and said that it assumed that the target person, the proband is not included. Talking about how do you feel included, how is it with your language, and so on. And posing my focus to language, identity is both ethnic and linguistic. And linguistic identity is part of cultural identity. Therefore, I would like to emphasize the singularity of my study, that the focus of my study is that it was demonstrated that there is an awareness of perceived cultural identity and linguistic identity from the speaker. So they have an awareness toward this in measuring all these features. And example number 7 emphasizes this idea. It doesn't matter how much you study German and how well you speak it, you are a stranger. So, as I mentioned before, cultural identity is bound to language, and linguistic science are expression of cultural and linguistic identity too. And linguistic science are expression of cultural and linguistic identity through social practices. Therefore, is identity a social and cultural phenomenon? And some signs, such as personal pronouns, could be the identity marker to measure perceived inclusion and exclusion, as I will show now in my last examples, number 8 and number 9. I am the guest here, so the personal pronoun I to define the person as a guest. And then they, so the Germans, look at you so differently because you are not part of their world. Like in example number 6, using their word, it's assumed that the person doesn't feel included. If I can summarize all my points, newcomers have a different background from traditional migrant workers as they have not been recruited. And the Italian population is so heterogeneous that the term comunità italiana should be revised to something which takes into account this complexity. Self-positioning hybrid identities are often, but not always, perceived as a richness. And there is a multiple identity range from local to global, and there is a new awareness of newcomers towards migration and their perceived cultural identity plurality. Language plays a fundamental role in measuring the perceived inclusion and the cultural identity, and therefore the expression of cultural identity through language needs further investigation. That's what I'm doing in my PhD project. That's all, and thank you for your attention. And further questions could be answered during the coffee break. Thank you.
No, stay here. Stay there. No problem. Thank you, Sarah, for your interesting presentation. And now we start with Rebecca. We continue.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Rebecca Mestre-Đapčić from Croatia, from Zagreb, from Institute of Migration and Ethnic Studies. And I'm senior researcher. My primary research is Croats in Australia and United States of America, but also I work with my colleagues about Croats in Germany. And today I will present you some little pieces about our research. Today in Germany, according to the Croatian embassy in Berlin and the Croatian Catholic missions, there are more than 3,000 Croats. Number includes those who declare themselves Croats from the Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Vojvodina, and the Bay of Kotor. It is also known that a considerable number of Croats in Germany working on a black, and as such Croats do not take part in any statistics. It is assumed that is about 1,000 work on black. Croats in Germany settled an average age of 22 years and the average length of stay in the country in 30 years. Almost all Croats in Germany live in the western part of the country, the former West Germany, including also West Berlin. Most of them live in the Baden-Württemberg, about 1,000 citizens, then in Bavaria, 89,000 persons originating from Croatia, then North Rhine-Westphalia, 60,000 persons originating from Croatia and has 45,000 persons originating from Croatia. Also, we have larger group of Croatians live in Berlin, Hamburg, Saxony, and Hamburg. If we look at the history of immigration of Croats in Germany until the Second World War, Croats were not significantly immigrated to Germany. They immigrated to overseas countries. The largest wave of immigration of Croats in Germany were after Second World War, from middle 1960s to middle 1970s. At the time, on the one hand, because of development of Germany and the need to import labor, but on the other hand, due to the economic crisis in former Yugoslavia. There comes an exodus of Croatians in Germany, and also they go on temporary work abroad, and which is over the years become permanent migration. The immigration of Croats have gone through the legal channels. And after this period, significant immigration of Croats in Germany was in 1990s. And lasting until now. The causes of immigration were first homeland war in Croatia and then economic crisis. Now, just a few important words about integration, acculturation, and identity. Living in Germany since the beginning of immigration, Croats had a very dynamic life within the organization Croatian ethnic communities and as a part of Croatian Catholic missions. All existing organizations of Croatian supplementary school have a major role in preservation of linguistics, cultural and national identity. Also, all the ethnic organizations and missions play a key role in the very successful integration, acculturation and integration of Croats in German society, with many link and also with German institutions. In all major German cities operate many Croatian social, cultural, sports and political associations. The most important is Croatian World Congress in Germany. Is it an umbrella organization with about 100 organization and represents the largest association of Croatian association and all institutions in Germany. The oldest Croatian association in Germany is Matica Croatia, which aims to inform all generation of Croats with the history, culture, language of their home country, Croatia. Significant association were also Association of Croatian Intellectuals in Munich, Croatian Cultural Society AMAC, Croatian Association and Catholic Missions in Germany, and they have a series of publication in the Croatian language in order to preserve the use of Croatian language in reading among Croats. The most important publication today are Messenger, World, Live Community, CroInfo. Large parts of Croatian immigrants, although living and working in Germany for more than 20 years, and more delays and the return process, although the Republic of Croatia have solved the housing problem, they also have opportunities for new business. The reasons for this is very good integration of Croats in German society at all levels of acculturation and the possibilities of fostering local, regional and national identity in German society. Also, I must told you that many Croats were not returning to Croatia because of the children. I used the method of oral history, also my colleagues, and in a few life stories of young people from Croatian background can be seen the potential of Croatian immigrants in Germany, which is seen as development middle class. They have good status because of its openness to the offered integration models, good management of family property, traditional industry has large investments in the education of children. The Croats in Germany instance immigrants ethnic community which successfully integrated into the German society. We can say that it was the second and third generation Croats in Germany, winners of the migration process of their parents. They are fully integrated to German society as reflected in the great success of Croats in German school and universities. Studies have shown us that this group of Croats identified with the general worldview and value system of Western Europe, and that are used the business responsibility and competition and free representation of their own view without repression. But studies have also shown us that the Croats' second and third generation, despite the good status and success in Germany, are not willing to give up their ethnic roots and their Croatian homeland. Great part of them speak Croatian, Croatian Participating Association and Catholic Mission, but they have strong family and friendship ties with Croatia. Even a small group, they are not accepted the model, growing up without two backgrounds. took over the experienced positive elements from the culture of their parents. From the middle 20th century to the end of second decade of 21st century, the Croatian immigrants in Germany can be classified into three categories. The first immigrant generation, partly political refugees and mostly temporary workers, migrant workers. Second, to which they belong to their children who have grown up and or born in Germany. And third migrant group consisting of contemporary migrations, professionals, educated people in the prime of life force who decided after education in Croatia a time settle in Germany. Regrading more closely the experience of German Croats in recent decades, one can clearly recognize their mobility in the social hierarchy of the physical workforce without qualification to the professions, educated professionals of different profiles with very good social status. Many Croatian experts managed and in the world of culture, literature, drama, sports, etc. Meeting extremely immigrant nation with a strong immigrant country provided to be very generous. Croats in Germany rightly deserve respect German, but also respect Croatian society. Their potential is enormous, and it seems that it does not end because the list of selected successful individuals in this article cannot be considered complete or closed. I just introduce this few young people, but I don't have time for tell you everything about these people. We can discuss after on the coffee break if you are interested. First, I would like to present one lady, Evelyn Novak, soprano, State Opera in Berlin. Then she is a very young, talented young lady. Writer and theater critic Jagodan Marinic from Heidelberg University, the famous solist in German musicals Jasna i Vir, is fantastic lady, and she said us, I have two identity. This is my choice and also my wealth. Another is Berlin film actor from Dalmatian hinterland, Stipe Erceg. Stipe say, I'm from a village, Vrgorac. It is a small place in Croatia, but for me, there is nothing more beautiful than I go there and enjoy in quiet and relaxed place. And then also dentist Andrej Brkic and so on and so on. But conclusion with this paper, we have a lot of research about Croats in Germany. It can be concluded that out of Croatia live innovative and creative Croatian community in Germany, which in life and business challenges of opportunity for permanently preserving ties with their homeland, as well as successful promotion of Croatian names in worlds. Through several stories which I have in this paper about well-networked Croatian community outside the Croatia borders, consisting of descendants of Croatian immigrants and contemporary Croatian migrants, affirmed in various fields and human activity, bring a new spirit into the old Croatian community and build bridges between the modern Croatia and the country of origin, as a country of origin, and German, where currently live and work. And thank you for your attention so much.
And finally, Sarah Josephine, can you check? Finally, we have Laura also, and Raquel is here, but finish with her, and when finished, you arrive here.
I'm going to break with format a little bit. It's a very Danish thing to do. I'm going to go ahead and stand up so I can actually feel my legs while I'm talking. So my name is Sarah Josephine. I'm from the Danish Immigration Museum, and today I'm going to talk about an article I wrote earlier in the year that explores the use of social media among the... I'm not sure this is necessary, but okay. Is it on? So it explores the use of social media amongst the Romanian diaspora in Denmark and their communication with Romanians who have not yet embarked on their journey to Denmark. So I know a lot of you are familiar with the Danish Immigration Museum, but for those of you who are not, the museum has existed in its current form since 2012. It's located just outside of Copenhagen. And at the museum, we explore, disseminate, and discuss 500 years of migration to and from Denmark. So my research is placed in I can stand over here, but also I can't reach the computer. So my research is placed within a larger context of a project called MyClue. We have a few other members in the audience who are going to talk later. So MyClue is an anagram for migration and inclusion. And the project is composed of different actors. So we have Aalborg University, we have the Immigration Archives in Aalborg and the Danish Immigration Museum. And within the project, we explore labor migrants. We particularly look at Romanians and Turks who have arrived to Denmark, and we look at Danes who have immigrated to Australia, the United States, and Argentina. So we look at labor migration across time and space with the intention of seeing if we can identify patterns. You can follow the MyClue project online at myclue.dk in case any of you are interested. So at the Danish Immigration Museum, we're very interested in digital and alternative communication and dissemination of research results. And all of the research we've been doing together is going to culminate in a big exhibit that you could view at the Immigration Museum on September 15th next year. So we can bring this up again. I've particularly looked at Romanians and Turkish people who have arrived to Denmark. They've arrived during different distinct periods of history. So the Turkish wave started in the 1960s, whereas the Romanian wave started from 2007. And I'm particularly, as I said, interested in the ICT, so internet communication technologies, their usage. And you might even question, so why does it make sense to look at the use of cell phones and internet when you explore a migratory wave that started arriving in the 1960s, right? Because they didn't have cell phones, they didn't use a personal computer at that time. But what we clearly saw is that when we began to look at a wave and their family that started arriving in the 1960s, and when we started looking at the wave that arrived in 2007, we actually saw that there were clear patterns of how internet communication technologies influenced their stories about themselves and their everyday relations, and that it was in two very distinctly different ways. So although I'm going to mainly talk about the Romanian wave today, I want to say that when we explored usage amongst the Turkish group, it was much more in the shape of how they create virtual communities around dating that are exclusive to people of Turkish ethnic origin. Whereas when we explore the usage among Romanians, it's much more about how the diaspora takes on an advisory role and tries to help newly arrived migrants and people who are contemplating migration to become more streetwise migrants and avoid situations of exploitation. Because we have very limited time to talk, I'm briefly going to outline how we designed the project, and then you can ask more questions about it. So what we did is we conducted 30 lifespan interviews. They were between an hour and 3 hours in duration. 9 of them were with Romanian migrants. And then very much inspired by Victoria Bernal, and I'm not sure if anyone here are familiar with her work, but she wrote Nation as Network, in which she explored the Eritrean diaspora and their increasing ability to influence local politics in Eritrea based on self-organized forums and political blogs. So very inspired by her approach, we not only did the lifespan interviews, but we also explored a Romanian forum specifically for Romanians who are migrating to Denmark that was founded in 2010, and that's very much used today. So if we place it within context, before 2007, 200 Romanians immigrated to Denmark every year.
Then we saw a very, very clear spike in 2007, where we're at a level now at about 7,000 people per year. And what we're also seeing is that they're staying. So in this particular forum, the most popular posts have been viewed between 22,000 and 120,000 times. And imagine if you're about to migrate somewhere and you have an anonymous profile where you can ask the diaspora any question you want and get a straight answer about anything before you go. What would you ask? Well, if you asked Danish politicians, they would certainly say that it would be related to how you could exploit the Danish social welfare system. That's a very sort of common discourse we see. But when we dived into what people actually talk about, three very clear tendencies emerged. One of them is something extremely practical and very non-sensational. It's about, how do I actually get there? Can I bring my car? What kind of paperwork do I need? Am I going to be checked in the car? Are there things I can't bring? So very sort of practical examples. And I've put out some of it. And what we see in the group is that people go ahead and advise each other and help each other so that they don't make any mistakes that they're fined on. Now, the second example is something that I've become very personally interested in, and I'm writing another article on. It is the ability for more people who've been in Denmark longer to actually help people avoid situations of social exploitation. What I mean here is that the most frequently visited thread on the forum is a forum where people vet future employers, meaning they literally post a letter of intent saying, I've been offered a job, particularly in this farm. Does anyone have any experience with this place? Does anyone know if they actually pay you the money they promise? Or they upload an employment contract and say, is this a contract that's in accordance with regular standards in Denmark? Is this legal? Or we specifically see people who are being stiffed by their employers who say, well, my employer actually didn't pay me. What should I do? And we very much see people who are active in the unions in Denmark help people become members of unions and also help take legal action against people who have been cheated. So for example, this is an example of how it's usually structured. Someone introduces themselves, and then I've obviously redacted the name and addresses and phone numbers and of the farms, and they say, you know, do you have any specific information? Or someone will even post on their own without having been asked a question and say, you should very much avoid working in this place because I had this kind of experience there. And then the final example I'll show is, in my mind, a very much a reversed example of what the politicians in Denmark think. What I see is when people ask about their rights, particularly rights to social welfare, they're usually already in a situation where they need the welfare system or when something's happened. So we don't see people say, I want to move to Denmark. What kind of rights will I have once I move? We see people say, I'm living in Denmark and I lost my job, or I'm having a child very soon. What rights do I actually have? So the logic of people picking where they want to go based on social benefits, we don't see any evidence of that here. We rather see it's in reverse, that once they end up in a situation, they want to find out what they can do. So as I mentioned briefly in the introduction, a lot of the research based on ICT or social media in general discusses whether the existence of a particular forum or the ability to talk to people actually results in more migration. And we've seen no evidence of that. What we see evidence of is that the migrants who actually come to Denmark are much more streetwise. They know a lot more about their rights. They're more empowered. They have the ability to pull on the experiences of a social network that already exists when they end up in a situation where they need assistance. What we're also seeing is a dramatic increase in union membership, and they're all from Romania. In certain areas of Denmark, when you see the proportions of the demographic and then see who is a member of unions, you can actually tie very much of it to the conversations and locations of people that I've been able to track down from the particular group online and see that they become union members. Thank you. Of course, you know, we have to say we can't rule out that there are any passive users of the forum that go in and look at, you know, what Denmark looks like, and there afterwards are inspired to come to Denmark. But I think it's very important to highlight that there really isn't any evidence of that. And following up on the study that we've done of both physical and virtual communities, there's a series of things we're going to start looking into now. We really want to start exploring in some of our next articles how if a diaspora can actually transfer social capital virtually to a community of people who haven't yet migrated, or to members who have just migrated without ever meeting in a physical space. And we're also very interested in how internet communication technologies will eventually influence belonging, social capital, and agency. So in case you're interested in some of those topics, definitely stay tuned, because that's what we're going to work on at the museum. I also want to, in the beginning, I said a little bit about that. At the museum, we're interested in alternative dissemination. And in response to the large influx of both refugees and migrants, we hosted an online class at the Immigration Museum in April. It was called Migration Contemporary Debates. We tried to create a virtual space for discussion and dialogue. And we're making, the class was attended by 55 youths aged 16 to 30 from 17 different countries. And we're making the content of that course, so it's a live course, we're making it available on the website as well, so anyone can explore the discussions. And we had, and finally, we just finished writing a book about the role of museums in the e-learning space. And Catherine and I discuss what we think is a huge need for museums and cultural institutions to be present in a virtual space where more and more youths go for a lot of their education. And again, if someone here is interested in that, feel free to ask questions. Thank you for your time.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, it's mine. Thank you.
Good morning. We are going to present our paper on mobility strategies and gender in a context of economic crisis in Galicia, my colleague Raquel Martinez and myself. So first of all, I want to start by giving a little bit of context about how during the last years we have witnessed really the growth of the literature that has analyzed in Spain the impact of the economic crisis on migration flows. So there has been a lot of scientific production on how the economic crisis had an impact on return migration, or even the re-emigration of migrants to other countries, or to other countries in Europe, for instance, or to the return to their countries. There has also been a lot of literature on the impact that the economic crisis has had on the labor market, and mostly on the labor migrants. So nevertheless, this literature has not focused on the different impact of the economic crisis that has on male and female migrants. It means it didn't have a gender approach, and this literature didn't assess how really the regional specificities of the labor market. The most part of the literature has focused on the national impact in Spain as a country, and did not focus on different regional contexts as Galician context. So what do we want to do in this paper and in this presentation is to go a little bit in this line of research, analyzing the gender mobility strategies of Latin American immigrants resident in Galicia during the period of the global economic crisis. And we want specifically to focus on two issues. First of all, we want to identify the gender patterns of migration and return. And secondly, we want to determine from a gender approach the connection between these patterns with the changes that has experienced in the Galician labor market during this period of major recession. Okay, so which is the main argument that we want to develop in this paper is that the impact of the economic crisis on the migrant population, on the migration flows, return, remigration, and even in the labor market, has a specific logic in Galicia, in our region, because our region is determined by a history of emigration. Okay, so we are a region that is really specific because we have been ascending an emigration region and also a receiving region. So what we want to develop is how this typology of immigration in Galicia, which is very much different in comparison with other parts of or regions in Spain, is really linked to a complexity because of the characteristic of Galicia as an emigration and an immigration country. So I'm going to develop a little bit now, which is the typology and which are the different types of immigration in Galicia, which make this region specifically and different from other parts of the national context in Spain. So here in Galicia, we have different types of migration. In the first place, we have the more relevant immigration, which is the migration that is linked to the Galician emigration. You know that Galicia has been a very much country or region of emigration to Latin America and to Europe. So one of this emigration has developed social networks that have linked the countries of destination of immigrants, Galician immigrants, with Galicia. So now we have a new immigration from those countries that is linked to this immigration history. So the first relevant immigration is from Latin America. So here is the migration with historic links from Latin America. And then we have migration with historic links from Europe. Those countries from Latin America are mostly Argentina, Uruguay, Venezuela, and Cuba. And those from Europe are France, Germany, United Kingdom, and Switzerland. There have been ties developed between the Atlantic and the Pyrenees because of the social networks developed from immigrants, Galician immigrants, and the new immigration from those countries. Secondly, in Galicia, there is also an immigration without links with the migration emigration that has developed together with the growth of the immigration flows that have received Spain during the last decade. This is, for instance, the migration that comes mostly from Brazil, from Colombia, Romania, Morocco, and Dominican Republic, which is this one, migration without historical links. And those migration flows that do not have any relation with this emigration history of Galicia. And finally, we have another specificity in Galicia, which is that we have a border migration, which is protagonized by migrants that they come from our neighbor country, which is Portugal. So this makes that our context is very specific comparing with other regions in Spain, because we have a very complex typology of migration in Galicia. So our main argument is that the impact of the economic crisis in Galician regional countries is going to be very specific because of this typology of these different features concerning the migration model that we have. So I'm going to pass to answer the question, what is the different impact of the economic crisis depending on gender, which is the impact for male and female migrants, and depending on the type of migration. Okay, first of all, there is a greater impact of the economic recession on the mobility strategies in terms of return of migrants to their country of origin or to re-migration to other European countries, for instance, of male migrants. So the economic crisis has touched much more male migrants than women migrants. So for instance, here in this graph, you can see how the stock of migrants, the female migrants, has gone less down than the stock of male migrants that went really down, more down from the 2008 until now. So the economic crisis had much more impact on male migration. Okay, so if we take, for instance, another indicator, which is the emigration rates, we can also see how the impact of the economic crisis has been more developed in the case of male migrants than in the case of female migrants. For instance, those are male, so the rates of emigration, those that go outside the country, is much more developed in the case of males in most of the countries of origin in Galicia. Okay, so secondly, concerning which typology of migrants have been more impacted by the economic crisis, we can say that the economic crisis had a more severe impact among immigrants without connections to the Galician emigration. And so they were most severely affected by the economic crisis, those migrants that really do not have any links with the immigration, Galician immigration. So those that have been more touched by the economic crisis are, for instance, those that come from Romania, Dominican Republic, Morocco, and Brazil. You can see here how, for instance, Morocco migrants really go down, and they're really an impact in the economic crisis. And we can see less the impact of the economic crisis in the case of those migrants that are linked with the Galician immigration. For instance, those that come from Europe in blue, you can see how the economic crisis does not really have an impact. And those that come from Latin America, we can see an impact. And so really, what really shows up is that the more impact of the economic crisis has been for those immigrants without links to the Galician immigration. And which is the impact of the economic crisis on the labor market. And I leave the turn to my colleague, Raquel Martinez-Bujan, which is going to talk to you about the labor market.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Laura. Now, we are going to analyze the repercussions of the crisis on the labor market of the migrants in Galicia, and we are going to explain the impact on the mobility of this group. So for doing that, we have divided the crisis states in 3 periods. One of them is from 2008 to 2009, to represent the beginning of the economic contraction. The second one is from 2010 to 2012, which represent the peak of the crisis in massive job destruction and the implementation of the austerity policies. And the last one is from 2013 to 2015 as the years that show a slight recovery in the levels of employment. First of all, we must remark that During the economic crisis, the foreign workers are usually the groups more exposed to the loss of employment due to the activities they do it and their socio-demographic profile. In Galicia, this pattern also takes place. Thus, the employment rate among the native population, that is, the number of employed people, varied from 49.7% in 2008 to 42.1% in 2015, which means a 7.7% decrease. But among the foreign population, this difference falls to 14 percentage points because of the decrease from 64% in 2008 to 50.1% in 2015. However, it is also important to point out that the diversity and richness of the Galician migratory model have allowed to identify at least 3 specific effects that differ from the tendencies present in Spain. Well, I'm going to explain these effects now. The first one refers to the delay of the effects of the economic crisis in the destruction jobs until 2012, while in the rest of Spain, they began to appear at the end of 2008. As a matter of fact, the presence of immigrants among the active population increased significantly in the period 2010-2012 compared to 2008-2009. We can see this tendency on the table. Active population is increased in this period of economic crisis in Galicia. Table 1 shows an absolute increase of 10,000 people. Although the employment rate, we can see the employment rate here, although the employment rate has a significant decrease in this period, that is 2010-2012, we can see this decrease compared to 2008-2009. This reduction must be related more to the increase of the active population and not that much to the destruction of jobs. Research has proven that when there is an employment decrease and unemployment increase, many people who were not looking for a job begin to do it in order to correct the difficult situation of the family because one of the members' job loss. The second effect, it is in the period 2013-2015 when there is a relevant decrease of migrant population. We can see this tendency here. In 2013-2015, we have a decrease of the migrant population in Galicia with respect to the period 2010-2012. For that, 3 years after the crisis in Galicia, the strategy of migration starts in this group to avoid the inconveniences of the crisis. And according to the data, the impact of recession has affected more women than their male compatriots. The specialized analysis in international migration towards Spain agree on the fact that the Great Recession hit the male activity sectors harder than the female, and that the unemployment rate remained higher for men than for women. In Galicia, this tendency presented some variations. On the one hand, the process of job loss in the building sector continued, but on the other hand, massive destruction was not enough to keep the unemployment rate among women lower than their male compatriots. For that, Table 1 shows that the female unemployment among the immigrant population has always been higher than male unemployment in the whole period of recession. The explanation must be sought in the characteristics of the Galicia labor market prior to the recession. This region presents structural unemployment among women, that is, permanent unemployment related to social and economic organization of this region, and adding on top the temporary unemployment, that is, unemployment that appeared specifically because of the crisis. The combination of both has caused a higher unemployment rate among women. And the third effect, to finalize, the period 2013-2015 confirms a slight recovery of jobs, or at least the tendency towards the fall of previous years seems to revert. If we consider the average in the 3-year period, the data does not show this recovery. However, if we consider the data year by year, we can see this slow recovery. The unemployment rate of the immigrant population increased 1% in 2015, becoming in 52%, while the year 2014 presents a rate of 51%. Nevertheless, it is relevant to remark that the reduction reduction of unemployment is not related to the employment creation. So it is very important to be careful in this interpretation of the results and of the crisis. This apparent improvement in the labor market among the immigrants, overall, the immigrants without historic links with Galicia, is explained because of the steady decrease of the active population in this period. On the whole, in the last 3 years, there has been a loss of 7,000 working migrants, with a more relevant decrease among women, whose active population has gone down to 8.2%. So thank you for your attention, and maybe we have more time for the debate.
Thank you for all participants in this session. Very interested. I think it's a good presentations too. And we have a few minutes if there are any questions for the conference participants or the people. Okay.
Hi. Thank you for wonderful panels. I had a question for Laura. These Europeans with historic connections to Galicia, I can understand the Uruguayans and Argentines, they're grandchildren of Galician immigrants, right? Who are these Europeans, these French with historic links? Are there also the grandchildren of the French-born grandchildren of Galicians who are coming to Galicia?
We have a return migration, so migrants that went to Europe, and then they are old people that they return, or they are retired maybe. So there is a return migration, but there is also a return, what we call the return to the land, because it's not a real return, but it's a return to the land. It's second generation, for instance. The big wave of emigration to Europe that has been developed in the 60s and 70s, from Galicia to Europe, to France, to Germany, to Switzerland, to United Kingdom. There were many children born, second generation children, that they also return to Galicia. Some of them, they have the Spanish nationality, they can have both nationality, they can have French nationality, German nationality. There is not a real return because they were born in France, but it's a return to the roots. It's roots return. So those are also immigrants. It's return immigration. So those people that have links with Europe are much more, it's another type of immigration. It's not much more linked to economic reasons, but it's more linked like with emotional links, with cultural links. Okay. That's why the economic crisis do not have such a big impact, because it's another type of immigration. So the return migration from Latin America was also a migration linked to immigration, to Galician immigration, but it has an economic reason also, because it was the Corralito. Many of them, they were also second-generation migrants, born in Argentina, born in Uruguay, but they were also...
those I know about. I just didn't know about the Europeans.
There was also a link to a meaning of return with an economic project. But those that come from Europe, the economic project is not so much developed. It's more like an emotional link, a myth of return that the parents did not achieve, so they are coming back because they want to live in Galicia, because they have dreamed with Galicia for many years. And so it's the first generation return and second generation return. We have less third generation because there were migrants from 60s and 70s. So it's more like first and second generation. It's more like a cultural return linked to the roots land, linked to the myth of return that has not been developed by the parents. So they are going to develop this link.
And just a quick question to Sarah about the regional origins of these new migrants, but also of the old migrants from the 60s and 70s, and if there is different.
Between two groups.
The regional origin in Italy. Right?
That's a complicated question. It needs so much time, but if I can summarize, I can say yes and no, because in many cases, of course, there is common cause, because people go to Germany because of their job, because they need to work, but there are some differences. For example, in the average education level, it is difficult to put all things together. But in average, the people coming in the 60s were not as educated as the average people who quantitative talking are moving now. So yes and no. I hope I answered your questions.
It was about the regional, not educational origins. Regional, where in Italy, southern Italy,
geographic. No, from everywhere, and yes, from everywhere. There are, but there is something very strange that, for example, analyzing whole Germany, there are some cities with a very high concentration of people from a city from another country. For example, not so far from Munich, there is a very big group from Muro Lucano. It's a small town. It's a small town in Basilicata, so in the south. So there are many people from Muro Lucano living there because there were connections.
Yes, compliments, because I really enjoyed this session, and I think it's very important because it showed us that the comparative approach, and it's very important, and to see how to put together people migrating from a country and people migrating into the country. For instance, when we look at the case in Spain, for me, it's very interesting because Spain is undergoing a very harsh economic crisis, such as, or even more sometimes, as Italy has had. And Spain has a brain drain migration and also a normal economic migration. But Spain is also a place where the new Italian migration are going, and they are still going. So I join you when you say that people are coming, people from Europe are not undergoing the same economic crisis as people coming from other different countries. And so Italians are still going to Spain, which brings us to another point of this new kind of migration, which is that it's not only an economic migration, but also a cultural, there was a cultural revolution in terms of the approach to mobility in countries like Italy, for instance. In Italy, middle-class people used to migrate didn't used to migrate, didn't go abroad. Only poor people were migrating, were going abroad. Since the 90s and the end of the last millennium, we had a widespread mobility among every Italian class of people. So people are all used to migrate to mobility now, and young people are migrating not only for economic reason but also for cultural reason. That's why they go to places like Spain, where economy is not good but quality of life maybe is better, and so they choose to move.
I just want to ask the last speaker if there was a rise in self-employment. The last speaker? Yeah. To go with the, as the jobs went down, was there a vast increase in self-employment amongst those migrants?
Well, it's very difficult to explain that with data because our survey, these data are from the Spanish National Survey and this national survey. So if you want to specific data about regions, the sample is reduced. So for that, it's very difficult to obtain some information about self-employment or activities. But now in the economic crisis and qualitative studies, for example, Laura also directed some studies about migrant self-employment in Galicia, and I think is complex, this system, because with the economic crisis we have two tendencies. On the one hand, we have some migrants who risk their benefits or their capital, their economical capital, to start up a business, but it's a business in a survival option. No, it's like a survival option. And on the other hand, we have more difficulties with economic crisis to find these small migrant groups who risk their capital, their economical capital for doing that in compared to before the crisis. But we have to see these patterns with a qualitative study because the data is not, the sample is not enough to conclude findings. So this is the pattern.
Thank you. I did notice that amongst my samples in Australia.
Okay.
As there was a crisis, there was a vast increase in self-employment.
Thank you. We finished. We have at 11 a minute to have a break, and we start at 11 with the session 2. Okay? Thank you.